G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome aboard the XF5F. Now, I know what you're going to say, why the hell are you flying that thing? That is a really good question. In truth, mainly because I haven't flown it in a very long time, and that's largely because it's kinda crap. The XF5F is rank 3, battle rating 3.3, it's only armed with two 12.7mm machine guns with 400 rounds of ammunition, and two 7.62mm machine guns with 1000 rounds of ammunition, and it's kinda slow for the tier that it's in. The stat card lists its top speed as being around 640 kilometers an hour, but the only way you're ever going to hit that in this aircraft is if you point it at the ground and go to WEP. The climb rate's reasonably decent. The stat card lists it at 4,900 feet per minute. It's not even close to that. Its climb rate is actually comparable to that of a Spitfire, so it's going to be around the 3839, which is, funnily enough, actually close to the historical numbers, because the historical rate of climb on the XF5F was around 4,000 feet per minute, not nearly 5,000, so it's actually not far off the money there. But I suppose the biggest question is, why the hell would you design an aircraft that's wing actually heads out in front of the fuselage? Like, what the hell was this plane designed for? Well, the XF5F was actually developed for carrier operations in the Navy. The United States Navy had been looking at its new carriers, and had been looking at the planes they had for them, and it occurred to them that while they had a large number of aircraft that were designed to brawl with enemy fighters, but they were really lacking in pursuit aircraft, interceptors. Now, keep in mind, this is late 1930s, early 1940s design here, and at the time, if you wanted to build an interception aircraft, you needed to build an aircraft that was incredibly light, was multi-engined, and was large enough to carry enough fuel to be able to be in it for a long haul, and this was obviously a problem for carriers of the time. A twin-engined aircraft, even built light and small, was going to be noticeably larger than a single-engine aircraft, for example, and it was going to have issues with storage. There was also the problem that, because of the way a twin-engine aircraft is designed, operating one on a carrier deck with decent visibility was always going to be an issue. Nevertheless, the Navy wanted this problem solved, so they put out a request for an aircraft to be developed to fit an interceptor role in early 1936. Now, by mid-1936, the Grumman Aircraft Corporation had put forth the design, and the United States Navy ordered one prototype, the only XF5F that would ever be constructed. And this leads it to the, quite frankly, horribly ugly design that is actually sort of kind of practical for the time period. The look and design of this aircraft is completely designed around 1940s carrier operations. And to understand the arrangement, you need to start at the landing gear. Now, the landing gear is based directly under the engine nacelles. Now, the engine nacelles are extended out well ahead of the leading edge of the wing, and the leading edge of the wing is extended out well ahead of the fuselage and the cockpit of the aircraft. Why the hell would you design it this way? Well, the undercarriage rotates backwards into the engine nacelles, so when the undercarriage is down, the wheels are almost directly behind the prop hubs. This puts the landing gear as close to the hubs as you can possibly get, minimizing the chances on a landing that you're going to prop strike a twin-engined aircraft, giving it the highest level of safety. The engines also being so far ahead of the leading edge of the wing in comparison to the position of the tail wheel, which you'll notice is right at the back of the plane, means that the actual angle of attack when the aircraft is sitting on the flight deck isn't particularly high for the size of the aircraft. Twin-engine aircraft will generally sit at a fairly high angle for a land-based aircraft. This one sits comparatively flat. This means when the XF5F is sitting on a carrier flight deck readying for takeoff, the pilot, in the rather raised cockpit, is able to easily look out over the front wing and see where all of the deck crew is, and to see what the marshal is actually signalling. He also has a very good view of the deck itself during takeoff, and more than that, because of the very low angle the aircraft sits on, the pilot will also have a fantastic view of the carrier flight deck while on approach to landing, something that even single-engine fighters regularly didn't have at all. In fact, it was noted by the test pilots of the XF5F during the test carrier landings that they performed that they were able to eyeball the deck of the carrier almost the whole way two-wheel touchdown, which is not possible in a single-engine prop-driven aircraft that has the engine ahead of the pilot. So the forward leading wing actually wasn't an aerodynamic consideration, but was in fact just a way of getting the engines as far forward as Grumman could possibly get them, in order to be able to get the pivot point for the landing gear as far ahead of the main fuselage as possible, in order to cut down that angle for carrier operations, and to give a little bit of a safety to the props. But it also helped address another problem: storage. Twin-engine aircraft, as a general rule, take up more space than a single-engine aircraft, and space is always at a premium on a carrier. Now, as much as the XF5F is not a particularly big aircraft, in fact its requirement was a loaded weight of around 10,000 pounds or roughly 4.6 metric tons, it still took up more real estate than a single-engine fighter did. So, to address that, Grumman did two things. The XF5F was the first aircraft that Grumman had ever built with a folding wing design. You can look just to the left and right hand sides of the engine, and you can see the marker where the wings would pivot up, and the wing was fully capable of folding in almost to the point of touching the cockpit. Now, with the wings folded up and the large gap between the horizontal and vertical stabilizers and the very forward-mounted wing, it was entirely possible, at least theoretically, as only one XF5F was ever built, to interlock the aircraft while they were in storage inside of a carrier. Now, this isn't exactly an uncommon thing to do, but the aircraft had special considerations done for it. The idea was that you would place one aircraft against a wall with its engines facing forward, and then you would back two more XF5 up to the left and right hand side of it, pushing them into position and then picking up their tails in order to rotate them into a position so the wings would interlock with the wings of the first placed XF5F. In this 3 configuration, placed properly, 3 XF5F interlocked together for storage would take up no more space than 3 traditional single-engine fighters on the same flight deck. So you have all the advantages of your twin-engine interceptor without losing the storage space. So overall, as much as the design of the aircraft is incredibly ugly, and I honestly don't think there'll be too many people out there that would argue with me on that, it was actually extremely practical and extremely functional, and it did work extremely well. In its testing, it went up against competing designs such as the XF4U that would become the F4U Corsair, and even the Supermarine Spitfire, and it outshone all of them in almost all categories. Which is precisely why the United States Navy, after having spent the money to order the prototype and having the prototype successfully pass all trials and outperform all of its competing aircraft, proceeded to not order any of them for production. Yeah, it wasn't that the XF5F was a failed prototype, it was actually an extremely successful prototype. The Navy just decided last minute that it didn't want them, and it had a couple of reasons for that, and in truth they're actually not bad ones. For starters, twin-engine designs. By their very nature, twin-engined aircraft require significantly more maintenance than single-engine aircraft, and it's not just engine maintenance because of the multiple engines. Twin-engine designs, especially combat twin-engine designs, are far more prone to structural stress cracks. As a result, the logistical requirements of a twin-engine fighter or a twin-engine interceptor on a carrier would be significantly higher than that of any single-engine aircraft. The second problem was technology itself. While the XF5F was ordered in early 1938, and it was developed and produced by 1940, a fantastic amount of time for an advanced interceptor, by the time the aircraft went into testing, single-engine fighters had advanced forward in technology, and they were producing aircraft that had very similar performance and range capabilities to the XF5F without any of the logistics problems associated. In the long run, the Navy chose not to pick up the XF5F and instead chose to use the new Wildcat fighters in the interceptor role and to authorise the production of the F4U Corsair instead, an aircraft that the XF5F had just beaten under testing. So again, while the aircraft design is incredibly ugly, it was actually very practical for what it was needed for, and it did work extremely well. In fact, it addressed a number of problems that wouldn't be addressed until the US Navy started upgrading to jet-propelled aircraft. And in the end, the XF5F did leave a little bit of a legacy. The knowledge gained during the development of the XF5F did lead to the development of the XP50, which from there led to the development of the F7F Tiger Cat, which was the first twin-engine combat aircraft that Grumman had ever put into full-scale production for carrier operations, and originally carried the name Tomcat, which, now that I mention it, as a twin-engined naval fighter makes the XF5F actually the great-great-great-granddaddy of perhaps Grumman's most famous fighter. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you very much for watching. As always, remember to check the video description down below for links to my social media, to my Twitch, to my Discord if you would like to come and chat with me, and to my Patreon if you'd like to help support the channel. As always, remember to click that like button, share and subscribe if you would like to see more, and to click that little bell icon to make sure you get notifications of any new videos released. And until next time, fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.